But I want to talk about the border for a couple minutes here, just because on the one hand, you got the Biden regime with all these mandates around masking and vaccines and all this stuff, and you better abide by it or else. I think they charged somebody with a felony for showing up at the Buffalo Bills football.
Double felonies. The only people getting charged with felonies in all of New York, a husband and a wife, I believe, went to the Bills-Patriots game with a fake Vax card, and they charged them in New York with double felonies.
So the law is the law, according to libs, until the law is not the law when it comes to our southern border. This was fascinating. This was just leaked audio from on Friday, and this I wanted to get this yesterday, but Clay and I, we've always got about 6 hours of show and only 3 hours of time to talk to you. So this was from Friday, and it's an exchange with Border Patrol, CBP agents, and CBP chief, Customs and Border Patrol Chief Raul Ortiz in Laredo, Texas. Obviously, got a lot of people coming through that sector of the border illegally. Now, the audio is not great, but we wanted you to hear it, and I'll explain a little more. So if you have a little trouble, it's a cell phone. It's leaked audio. This is not official statements. This is what was discussed at this CBP meeting. Play it.
I've been doing this job as long as y'all.
That's the problem.
What's that?
That's the problem, Chief. For evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. That's exactly what's happening here. Good men are doing nothing. You're allowing illegal aliens to drop off communities.
You are doing something.
No, sir, we're not.
You are.
No, sir.
You're rescuing people every day. You're taking fentanyl off the streets every day. You're taking methamphetamine
Yes, and under this
criminal
administration
aliens
for the
off the
last
streets
year, we've
every
got the
day.
highest fentanyl death in the history of our country. In 1 year, in this country.
You know, we've made more fentanyl seizures already this year than we made last year.
How many have we not catch because we're focusing on this family? And that's the problem.
And we're working on it.
So, Clay, just for everyone listening, he's essentially the chief, the brass, in a sense here, is saying, no, we're doing our jobs, guys. And the rank and file are saying, for evil to triumph, good men do nothing. We're doing nothing. We're not able to do our jobs. This Biden regime is unserious about the border. Fentanyl deaths are at an all-time high in this country. We're overstretched. We're unsupported. This is a joke. This is the rank and file of Border Patrol. I can tell you, Clay, having spoken to them many times, been down to the border many times, they're just like, what? And this is the policies directly from D.C. They're not letting them do their jobs.
Well, yes. Imagine how frustrating whatever you do. And I don't think you go into Border Patrol, Buck, by accident, right? You go in because you think that's a job that's worthy of doing. It's not like I always say there's a difference between a job and a career. It seems to me that many people in Border Patrol are making a conscious choice to pursue that as a career as opposed to something that you just end up doing. We've all had in our lives jobs, things that you do in the short term to be able to pay your bills, and then careers, things that you pursue hopefully over a longer term. And I tend to think of Border Patrol as something that is closer to a career than a job. And if you are not allowed to do what you are trained to do, then the frustration level there must be off the charts, particularly, Buck, and I don't think you can underrate this, because the Biden administration threw these guys under the bus over the horseback riding and the idea that they were whipping people who were trying to illegally enter this country. The Biden administration completely ran with a media-focused lie. Remember, they disallowed that particular segment of the border to even use horses. That was their response. They may have given them horses back now. But if you recall that story, it was 100% a lie. And when your boss doesn't have your back, you are done in many ways with being a full-blown supporter of that person.
And what you've seen, Clay, with the way the Biden administration has approached the border is they pretend that their hands are tied after they've tied their own hands. They set the policy from the top to make sure that there's going to be as much illegal immigration into the country as possible that is then allowed to stay, mind you. They don't do interior enforcement. Interior enforcement, they declared a 90-day. Biden comes in office and says there'll be no expulsions from the country for 90 days. Why would you do that? I mean, in what world is that rule of law based? And I just think everyone needs to remember, mask your kid up, mask up when you go into a restaurant, get the shot, or else you're barred, you're arrested, you're fined, whatever it may be. The law is the law for the libs when they're in power. But then when the law doesn't actually go along with what they want, when it does, and by the way, I would argue that all those things are also should be fought in court, and some of them are unconstitutional and everything else. But just put aside, they have the power to enforce that right now. But courts have gone against them on the border issue, and the reality of the numbers. I mean, Border Patrol's upset, Clay, because they just had the worst year ever of illegal crossings last year. The worst year ever. So, of course, they're angry. And now what happens? The Biden regime comes out and says, you know what? We will do, and a judge has effectively ordered them to do, remain in Mexico. There were almost 180,000 illegal crossings in December at the U.S.-Mexico border. Anyone want to take a guess? I know I can't hear all across the country. How many people were put in the Remain in Mexico program that they have to, under court order, the Biden regime has to reinstitute? 300, Clay.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah,
slow rolling the whole thing. They're pretending to comply with the law while abetting lawlessness at every level.
Well, and again, this is what we refer to as the Bidas touch. Everything that Joe Biden touches turns to crap. The one thing that he could have done that would have worked is just continue the Donald Trump policies. And he's tried to argue that he's doing that by the media covering that, and how much attention did the fact that only 300 people have been impacted by the Remain in Mexico policy. They got credit on some level for adjusting it, but the truth of the matter is there's no substance there, and I don't think it surprises anyone in the grand scheme of things that that's where we've ended up.